Yeah, let me do a quick hotel review of the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. Very large atrium. It looks very trippy. Um, the elevators are crazy. The rooms are decent. It's a very nice space for a convention. However, I will talk about a part of my trip that I like just like annoyed the fuck out of me. For the convention, when you do a convention at the hotel is hosting a convention, typically you get a discounted rate for the days of the convention. The discounted rate started on the Thursday for the weekend of the con. So you book through the convention through like a special ticket on like their website. I've got COVID for anybody if this is like a highlight or whatever. I've got COVID. That's why I sound like shit. Um, there's like a special. You book it through the convention website and you get the discounted rate from Thursday to whenever. Um, my brother showed up at this furry convention, which was hilarious. It was his first time at a furry convention. He had a great time. It was life changing for him. He enjoyed himself. But he was showing up on the Wednesday. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to be in downtown Atlanta in that area on the Wednesday. Yeah, my brother and his fiance were there. It was hilarious. It was great. Anyway, I was like, okay, well, I'll just book an extra day onto my hotel. So I called the hotel and I'm like, can I book? Can I? So I show. I'm currently booked to show up on the Thursday. Can I book to show up on the Wednesday? And they, after a while on the phone, they were like, okay, but it has to be a separate booking, um, because they can't add on to they can't change anything or add on to what had already been reserved through the convention thing. And the earliest day I could through the convention was the Thursday because that's technically when the convention started. So I wouldn't get the discounted rate for Wednesday. That's fine. I don't. I it's like twice as much for the room, but whatever. It meant a lot to like be down on that day and hang out with my brother while he's there. So I decided, yeah, I would like to get an extra day added on to the first part. And so they made two separate bookings, and I was like, okay, as long as I don't have to like leave like my room and move all my stuff out of one room into the next room. They're like, "Yep, we'll write a note. Just mention it when you get to the hotel." I'm like, "Okay." So I get to the hotel on the Wednesday. I'm like, "I've got two bookings. One is for tonight, and then one is from tomorrow until like Sunday." What they say I need to do is come back to the check-in desk. So I've got the room. I'm going to be in the same room. I've already got the room for the Wednesday. They say in order to check in for Thursday, I need to come back to the check-in desk before 11 a.m. Because if I don't do that before 11 a.m. on Thursday, then it will consider me as having been late in my checkout for the room that I already had, and they'll charge me an extra day for the room that I'm in on both days anyway. So they would like make up an extra day that is like impossible to rent basically, or just charge me the non-discounted rate for the Thursday, which is like so stupid. And I've done this with other hotels and conventions before where I'm like, "Oh, the convention's only for this weekend. I'm going to add on an extra day beforehand." Every other hotel I've done that with, they did the same thing. Like they're like, "Oh, we need to make two separate bookings," but they didn't say, "Oh, you have to come back and do the check-in process again, otherwise we're going to charge you for an extra day." That didn't happen with any hotel other than the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. And so my options were stay up until 4 a.m., which they said, yeah, you can do it as early as 4 a.m. My options were stay up until 4 a.m. or wake up at 11 a.m. I was already, I'm Pacific time zone going into Eastern time zone. I was already up and I was like, okay, well, I guess it's not that much later until 4 a.m. by the time I made up my mind. So at about 4:30 in the morning, everybody else is like asleep. My boyfriend's asleep. I go up to the front desk and I'm like, "Hey, I would like to check in for the same room that I'm currently in for today." And they're like, "We can't do that." I'm like, "What?" They're like, "There's something that went wrong in our system, so it hasn't actually carried over into the next day yet." I'm like, so I can't check in? They're like, no. I'm like, but I have to be back here by 11 a.m.? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, but I'm not going to get 8 hours sleep now. And I'm from out of town, and I'm going to I'm trying to enjoy myself at this convention. And they're like, well, it should be fixed by 8 a.m. And I was like, okay, so you're aware that I have the same room booked for today, or I guess technically yesterday. I already have it booked for this time period, and then I'm I'm trying to check in now for later today, but you won't let me yet. And I literally just said, like, if I show up past noon, you're going to already have charged me for an extra day. If I show up, can you not void that charge? Being like, hey, I'm literally in the same room. I don't know how this could possibly be considered as like a late thing, and I tried checking in and you wouldn't let me. And they're like, no, there's no way we can void that transaction. And he was just fucking lying. And I was so mad because the first employee I talked to on the Wednesday was a different person. And he was acting like, oh, there's no possible way we can check you in for both rooms right now. It's like, okay. And I even said, is there a way I can check in online? Like, do I have to leave my hotel? Like, do I actually have to come down here? Blah, 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 blah. They're like, nope, can't do it, blah, blah, blah. And so I do the thing they asked me to do. I show up at 4:30 in the morning, intentionally having stayed up so that I could do this thing. And then the guy who's clearly the superior there, there was like an older guy who was clearly in charge, and then a younger woman who just tried not to be a part of it because she understood like that I was being fucked with, and was just like, okay, well, I'm not going to say anything sort of thing, because she probably was like, yeah, it seemed like she also knew that this was kind of stupid, but like she couldn't say anything about it, and was just, yeah. So like the guy that was there was seriously trying to tell me, unironically, that there's no possible way to void a charge. Like it doesn't exist in their system that you could there's no way that they can charge someone and like take that away. Like, it's just impossible to void a charge, which is a lie. There's no system built that way in the service industry. You can void a charge. That's just a lie. It's just they were deciding like, oh, this is a rule that we're going to have in place for no reason, and it's like, fuck, it made me so angry. So yeah, I'm not giving you a good review, Atlanta Marriott Marquis, even though like without that I would have enjoyed my stay pretty consistently. It's a great space to host a convention. But when I've done this with other hotels, every other hotel, they're like, oh, just say at the beginning of your check-in, and they'll check you in for both days at once. They didn't ask me to come back, and they especially didn't ask me to come back, and then when I did come back, say, oh, actually, you can't. And you have to come back before 11. And what's really funny about it, I was like, I'm not going to get a full 8 hours sleep. Like, if I have to, it's 4:30 right now. If I have to come back here by 11, I'm just like, I'm going to ruin my sleep for the day. I'm trying to enjoy myself out of town. And the guy said, well, if you come back at noon, we'll still honor it. I'm like, well, so it doesn't matter? Like, why are you why do you have this rule then? Like, and first of all, there's no way I was going to come back at noon, because whoever's working at noon, he's not going to pass that information on to that person. He's not going to be like, oh yeah, by the way, this guy, let him come back at noon. There's no fucking way. Like, they would have charged me if I came back at noon. So my boyfriend can always fall asleep very easily. So I woke him up and complained, and he woke up for me and did the check-in with my credit card, which was very nice. But I'm still pissed at that, because that shouldn't be a thing that has to happen. That shouldn't be a thing that has to happen. And I saw like, there were like, I don't know, 100+ other furries that checked in on the Wednesday. Did they all have to come back twice? Did they have to check in twice? Is that just everybody had to do that? That's not a thing that you should have to do at a hotel. That's fucking bullshit. That doesn't make any sense. If your system doesn't allow for someone to check in that early because they're already at the hotel renting the exact same room that they're checking out of and checking back into, If your system doesn't allow that, change your fucking system because that's a hassle. That's ridiculous. That made me mad. So, um, this is how I rent. This is how I review hotels. It is my rating system, and you can't disagree with it because this is my rating system and mine only. If I experience any inconvenience that is easily preventable, that doesn't make any sense, and makes me feel like Larry David or something, then it's a 0 out of 10. So, otherwise, other than that inconvenience, I don't know. It's probably at least a 4 out of 5 for a hotel. But given that gigantic inconvenience, I'm gonna have to rate the Atlanta Marriott Marquis a 0 out of 5, or a 0 out of 10, whatever you would like. Unfortunately, that's my final rating. If we can slap that on the screen, 0 out of 10. I think I'll put that in Google actually, and hopefully they fix that because that's bullshit. I don't know if Google lets me do 0. I'm going full Karen, guys. Oh, 1 star is the worst. Well, I guess 1 star out of 5. That's a good 20%. That's not even. They made me check in twice for no reason, and then didn't even let me when I came back to do what they told me to do. That doesn't make any sense. No one's even gonna know what I'm talking about. Fix your shit, please. How do I'm gonna have to write this later when I'm when my brain's a bit better, because that doesn't even make any sense. I'm just gonna post that. Fuck that shit. Yeah, that's incomprehensible unless you've seen that video, but I stand by that review. Yeah, I mean, if I can update it with the URL to the video, then I can do that. Although, then the video shows my face, and I don't want like the hotel being like, "It's that guy," when I inevitably come back for another year for the fucking furry convention. Yeah, fix that shit. I'll give you a fucking better rating. Fix that shit. That's so annoying. Fix your system. That is absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Here's another funny story. I order a lot of things from Uber Eats, from delivery services. And because, as we're well aware, Uber Eats takes a big chunk of that revenue, there's an option at the bottom that says, give $2 to the restaurant. They take the whole thing. They really enjoy it. And so if it's not a chain restaurant, you know, if it's not like McDonald's, and it's just some nice like sushi place, you know, Vancouver has a lot of like family-owned restaurants and stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, I like this place. I want to see them thrive and continue, and I give $2 to the restaurant on my order because I'm a nice person. I think $2 is the maximum unless they input their own thing. So there's some restaurants on delivery service apps where they'll be like $5, $10, $15, and $20. But those are things that the restaurant specifically adds in, and it's like an item that you can add to your order, and it literally just says, this is to help the restaurant or the staff, like an extra tip. What's the hotel again? It's the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. Marquis. So there's this nice Korean restaurant that I like, and every time I order from them, I give them the $2 on the thing. And I got COVID, and so I was like, I want something with some broth. So I looked on their menu, and there was an item that was a soup. So I ordered some. I was like, I would like to order the soup. They had an option. So it was like a Korean tofu soup. And the different flavors, it was like 1 through 4. One of them being like mushroom, and then the other one being like another meat or something. Just like 2 different kinds of meats. And then one of them being kimchi. And I was like, oh shit, I like kimchi in my soup. I also like mushroom. But it wouldn't let you select all 4 at once. It was like you could only pick one of them. And so the four options were there. There was the base price of the soup, and then for each option, it was like plus $1, plus $2, or plus $0, depending on the option. The mushrooms were $0, plus $0 for the mushroom flavor, so that's like the base. The kimchi flavor was plus $1, and then the other options were like plus $2 because they're meat, right? And so I'm like, oh, I want kimchi and mushrooms, but it's not letting me do both. Mushrooms $0, kimchi $1. So I select the kimchi option because that is the $1 and not $0 option. So I'm actually paying for it. I select kimchi, and then in the notes I say, I would like to add a mushroom to this, please. And I complete the order. And then 2 minutes later, after they had accepted my order, I got a notification saying, the restaurant has updated the price of your order. I was like, what? And I look, and they added on $2 for the mushrooms. But the mushrooms were listed as $0, and I had selected the kimchi one that was for $1. And I had also given them $2 for free, saying this restaurant, $2 for the restaurant for nothing. I had given them $2 free for nothing because I was being nice. And they charged me another $2 for the free item, even though I gave them $2 for nothing. And so in my mind, it's okay. At this point, I can justify this experience by saying, well, I guess I'm never giving them that extra $2 again. I come out on top, I profit, because now I'm saving $2 on every order, because I used to give them $2 and now I don't. Now I'm saving $2 on every order. I'm going to come out on top here, okay? Bullshit. I've got another story for you. This one happened years ago. There was a pho place where I would always eat pho at this place. It was a very convenient place for me to do it. And pho, like Vietnamese ramen, but not ramen. Vietnamese soup, noodle soup. And my parents would fucking come from out of town. I would take them there. I would always bring like groups of people. I would always tip really nicely. And one day there was a storm in Vancouver, and there were like fucking like there was like power lines that like fell over. We had to, and I was like, I usually just like walk straight there, but we had to like go around like a long way. I was like, oh, it was like this trek that it was like, we made it. Like we put in so much effort to get to this place. And we go there. I had a roommate who was like back at home, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll get something for them. I don't know. And so I was just going to get some pho. I was just going to get some soup. And so I'm there with a friend that I had brought there. I'm always bringing new people to this place and everything. I order my soup, and there's two options on in the appetizers. One of them for a salad roll, which is like a shrimp salad roll, and then the other one says beef roll. And there's no pictures for either of these things. And I've had a salad roll before, and so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to. Would you like to get the salad roll? And the person I was with was like, no, let's get the beef roll. I'm like, okay, I've never had this before. Interesting. We'll see what happens. I don't know what to expect. Never had it. We wait a while. Our soup comes. Another plate shows up, and it's like rice with meat. And I was like, oh, interesting. I would assume that, like, if it were a roll, it would be, like, rolled in something. Like, that's the name on the menu. I don't know. This is, like, the people here, like, it's a family-owned place. I don't know how good their English is, sort of thing. Maybe there was some like mistranslation on the menu. And so I poke at it with my fork. I'm like, this is really weird. And I like taste some of it. I'm like, oh, that's chicken. That's not even beef. And then from from the kitchen, because it's a very small place, from the kitchen, I can hear them, the people that work there, and it's a family owned thing. Like the same every time I went to this restaurant, it was like the same people working every single time. Like I could recognize. I'm like, you're the daughter, you're the mom. It was like I knew these people, and they knew me very clearly because like I'm a very tall white dude showing up at a restaurant of mostly Asian people, bringing a bunch of friends, tipping nicely, etc. Um, and long hair. I would think that I'm like fairly recognizable outside of like, not from YouTube, but just like if I go into a place multiple times, I'm very tall and I have a distinct look, I guess. Anyway, um, I recognized all of them, but I could hear um, from the restaurant just by overhearing they were kind of like bickering at each other. And one of them said, "You brought it to the wrong table?" Oh. And so I was like, "Oh, I guess that's what just happened." By this point, I had already like poked at it with my fork. I had already eaten some of it and been like, "Oh, it's chicken." They brought it to my plate, and I had a bit of it before I realized that it wasn't my menu item. We're eating our pho. At some point, at some point, um, at some point they give us the actual beef roll, and it was like, oh, this is like a shrimp salad roll, but with beef instead of shrimp. Like, okay, that makes sense. And so it was like, okay, well, I wasn't even sure we were gonna get the beef roll. None of this had been communicated to us from the staff at this restaurant. The only reason it was obvious that there was this mix up is because I had overheard one of them from the kitchen right there being like, "You gave it to the wrong person." And I was like, they were clearly like, okay, I could figure it out. That's the only way I knew. That was the only. They never communicated that to us once. Eventually, we got the beef roll. I didn't know that was coming. We had finished the pho and like some of I think most of that whatever rice and chicken dish. We had split that. It was like, okay, well, Sonex, I don't know what you mean. You can still return it because they can't use that after you've contaminated after you've had a bite. Like you can't serve that to another customer. That's I don't think that's legal. Maybe in your country. Um, they throw it at who? Anyway, so by the end of the meal, I'm like ready to pay for it, and I'm like, okay, this is like this is like $10 more expensive than it should be because I've been there so many times. I know what the prices of things are. Um, and I asked the girl at the cashier, I'm like, "Did you charge me for the item that I didn't order?" And her response is, "Yeah, but you ate it." And I was like, "But I didn't order it, and you never communicated to me. Like I didn't even know. I thought that by the time I had already started eating it, I thought that it was the item that I had ordered. I didn't. Yeah, but you ate it." And I was arguing with her for like literally like a circular argument for like 8+ minutes to the point where like there started to be like a people behind me, and I was like, okay, like really, like not only were they gonna willing to lose me as a customer, and I'm trying not to like over Karen myself, like I'm the most important customer, but like I had brought so many people there, I tipped well. There's no way that they didn't recognize me. I knew exactly what all of them looked like. There's no way. Come on, they should at least. I don't know. There's other restaurants where like it's clear that they recognize me. Anyway, um, like you're willing to lose a customer over $10 of an item that they didn't order. And what really sealed the deal, and the reason why I haven't been back there since, is because it wasn't just a rogue employee, because the family members that I recognized as being the people that work there were sitting next to the cashier, like on their break, and listening intently to this conversation. The elders in the family were like just nodding along, like, "Oh yes, this is a normal argument to have with a customer." That not once did they be like, "Hey, just don't charge him for the thing he didn't order." Not once did, like, they didn't even seem like they thought that there was an issue. They didn't even seem like they comprehended that there could possibly be anything wrong with how they're handling this situation from a customer service perspective. And so that's what sealed the deal on me never going back there again, is because it wasn't just the girl that was working. It was the family that was watching, and just they could have at least given a facial expression that suggested that I was like not being unreasonable by not wanting to be charged for something that I didn't order. And so by the end of it, after arguing for a long time and just like going in circles and just continue always being like, but you ate it. But you ate it. I'm like, but you can't, like, is there a business loss here? Because you can't give it back to the customer. So this is just out of some like weird spite. This is just out of some like weird retribution that you're mad at me that you put the food on my table. You're mad at me about it? Like, this doesn't even... Did I eat the whole thing? I think I ate most of it, yeah. And so we had the leftover beef rolls, and I was like, oh, I'll just bring this home to a roommate, because we have an entire... Because I wasn't hungry anymore. I didn't know I was still getting the beef rolls. I was hungry enough for my soup and an appetizer. We got a soup and a plate. That's what we ate. And then the beef rolls showed up. And I was like, okay, we have an extra dish. And so by the end of the conversation, by the end of the argument, with the beef rolls in my hand, I was like, what? Like, do you want to take my leftovers? And she said, yeah. And she took them out of my hand. And I was like, and I just paid. And I was like, well, if that's what it takes. And so she didn't charge me for the extra item because I gave her back my leftovers, which she can't give to another customer. Yeah, she took it out of my hand. And so obviously I didn't tip for like maybe one of 2 or 3 times in my life where I didn't tip. I know to non-North Americans that's crazy, but and I was like, wow. And I never went back there again. And it's been like 5 years. And I used to go there all the time. They've lost a lot of, I guess theoretically, lost a lot of money. They would have more money. They would have, by this point, they would have hundreds of dollars, maybe even $1,000 from the amount of people that I would bring, the amount of, like all over a $10 item just out of some stupid fucking spite. $10 item. And they took my leftovers. It's wrong that they didn't come over to tell you that it wasn't your dish, but also, if I had overheard, I would have stopped eating to avoid some dumb situation. I'm not a customer is always right person. Sometimes, like, I've worked in customer service. I've dealt with a lot of crazy people. I'm not a customer is always right person. But you can't charge someone for something they didn't order after you put it in front of them and never told them. They didn't even like inform us. That's absolutely unacceptable. That is not justifiable in any way. That is not justifiable. There is no possible way you can justify that. And yet that entire family was just like there and like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, there's no, like, in their mind, the universe is a better place by preventing me from getting extra food because of their own fuck up. Because they're not gonna, I would hope they're not gonna give that to another customer, the leftover beef rolls. Like, what are they gonna do with it? Like, oh yeah, that now it's worth it to us. The $10 is worth it to us as long as you're not eating any extra food. You're so stupid. When I notice it's the wrong plate, you call the waitress and tell that plate isn't yours? No. If I had noticed before I'd started eating it, then I would say, yeah, for sure. And that's happened to me before plenty of times where, like, a waitress will be like, oh, is this your thing? And I go, no. I could be an asshole and just be like, duh, and then, like, trick them into getting free food. I didn't do that. It was placed in front of me. They didn't say the name of the item out loud. I can't believe any of you in chat are trying to justify me having done anything wrong in that situation. There is nothing I did wrong in that situation at all. No. No. You can try and make me admit fault in many other situations. There's nothing I did wrong in that situation. No. You ate it. What? So what? So if she tosses it in the trash first and then I eat it, is she gonna charge me $10? Because that's what she did, basically. It's her fault that she couldn't sell it to another customer. If she tosses food in the trash and then I, like, eat it after hours, is she gonna charge me the next day? That's the same shit. There's no difference. We should get Gael's take on the situation. Yeah, let's invite him up here and get COVID. Gael, do you want to get COVID to talk about this? Just say, yo, you brought the wrong thing. I already ate it. It's not the customer's responsibility to inform them about that. How is that my response? What if I couldn't talk? They can't serve mute customers? It's not my responsibility at all. What if I have social anxiety issues? Piece of shit. And I guess just an update for that thing where I complained about the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. I checked my bill and they tried to charge me $55 per night for parking when it's supposed to be $28, so I just called them and they refunded it. But so that proves that they are capable of issuing refunds in their system. That fucking manager was obviously lying. That's what he was saying was just so obviously untrue. But yeah, if I didn't check my bill, I would have been charged double for parking for no reason. It says 4 minutes ago because I just updated it with that part, but yeah, I mean, if you can't find it, then you can include that in the video. Being like, wow, it got my review got shadow banned. It could have been because I had the word shit in it, but someone shadow banned my review. It might be because the word shit's in it, though. I have no idea. I'll try posting the exact same thing again without that word, honestly. We'll see if it shows up.
Hey everyone, it's May 2022, so let's update these Patreon credits. My $5 and up patrons are Wriggle Moss, Speak of the Joker, Black Mama 1993, Mitzi Marcella, Yup Yup Yup, Caden Mack, Andre Philippe, Charisma, The Super One Player, Jacob Arndt, Zachary Kane, Samjul, Cheat.exe, Gothic Sith, Mandelbro, Wales, Bo the Doggo, Gabriel Herrera, Hoofido, Malav Shah, and Lemonade Warrior is participating in the hit game Among Us and is considered the encroacher. Take care, everyone.